Hello and welcome to our next painting collection webinar. Thanks for being here. We are painting people carrying weight. We added a few more images in the folder last minute. So if you want to go back to the folder and see what we added, and also we're going to briefly touch on the themes. So maybe the first few minutes, if there isn't anything there in the folder that you think you want to paint, it's going to give you time to maybe do a little bit of a research. But today is Friday, October 28th, 2022. I always have to stop and think. Hi, Jen. How are you?
Hi, friend. Me too. I was writing the date in the notes and I was like, I have no clue what the date is. Like not at all. Not at all. I think it's still October. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm happy we're here together and doing this. So really excited. And let me see briefly to give people a couple more minutes. Lois is going to join us also. But I just wanted I sort of like uploaded this one. These are stock images. So that's why they have the little patterns. But I added these four other images. The only one that had like a vehicle that we use as the cover of the webinar is this one right here. So you can pick individual, or you can pick the ones with the bicycle and the boxes. Jen, if you can, so this is the artist. I forgot to add this image on the email, but her name, Mary Mataling. This is the installation. You can see the tiles on the subway. I said tube yesterday, but yeah, the subway. But there's an image that it's much bigger. If you want to find that image,
sure.
It shows the entire boulder-shaped net that she built.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, perfect. So then we'll give you also an example, and maybe we could use that one as well. But anyhow, so I picked this one and I'm gonna go ahead. I did not have time this morning to go and print it out. So I'm just gonna use the iPad. I put it side by side and I'm excited. This reminds me, I was trying to find inspiration and also try to find verbiage to explain what this is about on the email. And this took me back to the Wabi Sabi theme, in the sense that the philosophy of Wabi Sabi talks about how everything is precious, everything has a purpose, every object, and we should just take care of what we've got rather than just accumulate it. So the Wabi Sabi had some elements that parallel the concepts that she's bringing up. And when we saw her installation, we thought this could be visually very interesting because there are figures. It talks about gravity, weight, and axis lines. So I think the subject in itself is excellent in order to practice figure drawing and also movement. But at the same time, I was really intrigued about her approach, and I thought, this is beautiful and interesting and powerful and deep, but we don't have to wait until the future to visualize this dystopia. It's already here for millions of people who have to do this all the time. And as we were Googling images or searching for images, we discovered powerful images from different cultures and countries with different purposes. Some are more positive and some are based on labor that it's not really positive at all. So like we tried to pick the ones that felt a little bit less dehumanizing. There were images of children picking up garbage in Brazil and child labor mostly, and young girls carrying a lot of weight. So there are some images that I feel they dwell too much into trauma, I think, or pain from others. So we always have to, I'm going to start sketching, but we always have to find a way, and I think it's important to mention this, find a way to find inspiration and articulate our message and convey what we're trying to say without using someone else's trauma. This has been pointed out before. A lot of people have protested works of art that have used other people's traumatic experiences and pain to make their case. And we have learned that it's not appropriate to kind of like do that. So anyhow, I'm glad we're just mentioning this, but I don't know how to process that. But what I'm going to do right now is I am going to set up my parameters. Okay, most important thing in this moment right now, nothing else matters, is to arrange our focal points within our composition. So that's what we're going to be focused on right now. So I just set up like a top, and on the sides, I want enough space. I'm going to retrofit, I'm going to distort, reinterpret, but essentially that would be my first approach. Always, doesn't matter how long we've been doing this, look at the edges. I love, Jen, that you mentioned the other day that you did this in a few days ago, and you realize how easy it is to get like things off the frame or off frame, right? You mentioned it at Trails to me.
Wait, what do you mean? Like sorry,
No,
say that again?
that you were sketching something and then
Oh,
you realize how easy it is to create something that it feels off frame or not being able to control
oh,
space.
yes, it got away from me so fast. I was doing Lois's trick of sketching in pen, and just to do something quick. And I was just doing some work with Henry, just doing some watercolor, and so I was like, oh, I'm gonna try Lois's trick, and so I can, with pen you tend to commit, and so I committed to this composition that I couldn't change, and it was fine until it wasn't. And it was at the very end, I, of course, had this feeling of, oh, I just can't stand this composition. And to the eye, it was interesting. To the eye, you kind of like made up for it, like you could make sense of it. But the minute that I took a picture of it, it just immediately screamed, this composition is wrong. Yeah. Yeah, and of course your voice was in my head.
Oh, well, it's just so interesting because it happens every time. Doesn't matter if you've done it now or you've been doing it for a while. It's just it's so easy to get carried away by size and location, and then you get something else.
And stubbornness. Dang. Their own stubbornness gets in the way.
Yeah. No, it's not easy. So thanks for sharing that. And so, yeah, I'm just trying to start positioning, and with an image that it's not allowing me to correlate alignments as easily as when I put the photocopy. So I have to, and this is actually pretty interesting or very good, because I have to reinvent, or I have to use like other measures. So what I'm going to do is essentially, I'm going to try to bring up the focal point and see what's on the center of it. I think that's a good idea. Just to give me a sense of what's going on, and I need to put the card much lower. I'm also identifying the big masses, the big potatoes. So I love this image just because of the variations on the stuff, and also that there are a few figures. So I'm just gonna go back ahead, and I did a stick figure, literally just a stick figure on the figures on each side. So I'm just gonna go and then do the stick figure one more time here. And I realize that needs to be maybe it's a little higher. Okay, so stick figure right on this side. And I'm gonna do the stick figure right on this side. Yeah, so basic stick figures for now. And then I'm gonna lower the card a lot more. The actual, much more. So it gives me a little bit of a, okay. So maybe now that I have this, I'm gonna reshape the elements in the card, just basic masses. Nothing, nothing too specific. I think that's okay. I'm not gonna do anything on the background. So I'm gonna focus on the size of the elements right now. Okay, that's good. All right, I'm gonna continue. I think what I'm gonna do right now, based on the stick figures, I'm just going to start maybe building a little bit more of the essence. Not the essence, I'm gonna build the muscle structure, I guess. And I'm using a little bit of shading. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to reshape this a little bit more. Maybe I won't do the figure on the back, just the figure on the front. Okay, that's good. Maybe the leg needs to be a little bigger. Okay, so slowly what I'm doing is from the stick figure, I'm just bulking up those axis lines. So you start with a stick figure, and the stick figure allows me to find angles, lengths. So I check out the spine, and I check out how long the spine is, and I check out what's the angle. And I need to go back a few times because I'm not happy about that angle. And then the angle of the head, it's a little bit more upright. So I'm just gonna build that a tad more. Okay, so here we go. And I'm gonna do another scan, another pass. With the figure, I just, I tried to do a few passes before. The sleeve is much shorter. So every time I do a pass, I realize there's something I can build, adjust. I try not to commit too much to details. Okay, here we go. So I think that's good. That's much better. I try to avoid becoming too linear and bring more, there we go. Okay, so I think slowly it starts to bulk up. So again, stick figure first. The tendency, I have to assume that I'm gonna make the lines way too stiff and way too vertical. So I assume that that's gonna happen. And what I do is I try to visualize things that help me melt that rigidness. So I start with a stick figure, I bulk up the line into creating something that feels more like figure-like, but I know that it's not enough. That is not enough because I need to constantly check the angles and the lengths of every one of the axes that I have. I know that I assume that things will get stiff and rigid. So what I do is I go back and I try to see what can I bend, where can I flex that rigidness to melt the stiffness of my lines. Is it an angle that needs to be more bent? Is it a length that needs to be lengthened? So another thing that I'm going to do is find alignments. So the knee and the face are aligned. So my knee needs to come forward a lot more. So I try to bring certain parameters here. Okay, good. So that's going to help me, that knee. Okay. Okay, so I think that's a good beginning. It's a good beginning. So what I can do also is I check the distance between different parts of the figure to find out if I can find similarities in the length. For example, from the top of the head to the waist, is it the same as the waist and the sock? So from the top of the head and the waist and the sock. So these legs need to be dropped a little bit more. It's not quite right, that midpoint. So my assumption is that, you know, my first stick figure lines need to be worked on. They need to be hammered. They need to be bent. I think this is a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to go to the other stick figure. And I feel like, you know, this being more a figure drawing approach first or mainly, I don't mind spending some time with the figure here. And I feel like that could be the main focus. As I do this, I realize that everything outside of the figure is not as important. The figure here takes protagonism, and therefore I'm going to bump it up to the top of my important things to translate and capture. I can always squeeze, expand, reduce, and adjust the rest of the objects to the figure. But I feel like the figure here takes center stage. So I'm going to start bulking up my stick figure. So I just essentially use the axis line, and then I start expanding on both sides slowly. I know that it's going to take me more than just doing that, but okay, so the feet are like a little bit longer. I'm going to essentially block this area completely. So I have my first bulk up, but it just feels stiff. It doesn't feel quite organic or with sort of like forward moving motion. It just feels like a doll or a figurine that I just bend the elbows and the legs. So I need to go back at it and then see if there's something I could switch or adjust or mold. So first of all, the shoulder line drops out a little bit more. And then there is this beautiful apron that gets tied on the back. So let me see if I can bring that element, and that creates a converging line on the waist. This line, it's a little bit longer, the line of the arm. So I'm going to push the packet, the box, and I'm going to move the head forward. I feel like that's going to help me tremendously. So the head needs to move forward. I'm just essentially very briefly sketching a little bit of the shading of the hair. And I look at it, I think that's a little bit better, a little bit better. So again, as you can see, I'm moving forward and changing every time. Don't stick with the same lines. It's just going to give you, it's going to frustrate you. It's going to make you think like you are trying to move forward, but the painting is going to pull you back. So those first lines, they need to be worked on. They need to be manipulated. They're just the beginning. So even this is going to help me. The back of her head, it's not round. So it has a little bit of an angle. Okay. And that alone is going to help me. I try not to make the lines too evident. Okay, I'm going to blur with my kneaded eraser. So there's a little bit of clarity, and I think this is actually working. It's actually working, so great. The legs need to be a little lower or a little longer. Remember that, you know, we usually start with the torso and the head, and then we end up not having enough space for the legs. We make the legs too short. So I'm actually going to lengthen the legs much more. And the legs, the heel is going past this line. So I've caught another area that I need to exaggerate. The lower leg, I'm going to push it back. Much more developed, much more dynamic, much more creating a tension between the center of gravity of the figure and the fact that the figure is pulling weight, and exaggerating that. If there's anything, I love spending a little bit of time with this. You know, we have time, but if there's anything about this, about figure drawing and figure painting, is this: the first lines are not final. Don't do or a draft and pretend that that's gonna be fine. Assume that the lines will give you a stiff, wooden, rigid illusion, and also assume that that's only the beginning or the raw material for you to start molding that first initial stage. But if you sketch and then you erase completely, and then you sketch again, and then obviously it's not going to work, because you're not building from what you have before. You're building from scratch again. You're going to fall into the same pattern, rigidity and stiffness. You have to start with the stick figure. You have to fill it up or expand, and then you have to mold it. Use observation, angles, axis of the spine, how long are the legs, see how are the heels aligned with the top of the head. Are they on the same line? How far apart are they? So try to use all this observational tricks in order to start molding Oh, the figure. This was like really interesting in the sense that we did the figure drawing a few weeks ago, and we had people who joined for the very first time. Okay, they were interested, they wanted to do it, and it was really intense in the sense that I had to constantly provide sound bites that were helpful, I hope, to make them go forward from that figurine stage. Everything felt really stiff. There was no diversity of lines. There was no manipulation of the figure. They looked at the figure and then they replicated. And then they looked back at the figure not to get more information, just to confirm that what they sketched was actually right. So it was the wrong approach entirely. I'm very happy about this second figure, by the way. I think it's much more interesting and much more well developed than the first one. So that means that I'm gonna have to do some work on this other figure to maybe develop it a little bit. Yeah, and I noticed what's wrong already. I need to bring the back a little, push it back, shave the shin. It's already looking much better. I'm gonna do a little bit of shading. Sometimes the linear element, it's so strong. The upper arm needs to be bigger already. So sometimes by just removing the line, it's too strong. Line alone, it's too confronting, it's too rigid, it's too flat, it's too two-dimensional. Bring some shading, open up the line, don't bring too much detail, don't deconstruct too much, bring some half-done elements to the figure. Okay. I am extremely happy right now. So I'm going to move forward really quickly with the wheel. I'm going to treat this almost or in a very abstract way. This is lower and it's closer. And I'm going to lower the card even more. Lower the card. I've always been fascinated by how we move our stuff around. So this really appealed to us. This trucks, I mean, it's LA. The Porsches and the Ferraris, and then the beat up trucks carrying appliances, piled mattresses, trimmings from trees, and they're like overpacked. It's unsafe. It's just devastating. I'm not just here in LA. In Spain, for example, there's before the summer starts. So Barcelona, it's on the Mediterranean coast, and it's part of the route of people who come from the north of Africa and work in Spain and France, and yeah, Spain and France, I would say, maybe Germany. And they use that axis, that Mediterranean sort of like highway, to drive all the way to their homes and spend their vacation there. So it's always a trail of cars that are so filled. Uh, the top of the car, it's a bunch of things tied up with the bird cage and the mattresses, and I always found it hypnotic and fascinating. And you know what's sad? What's sad, it's not that this happened. What's sad is that it doesn't happen anymore. And I don't know why. So maybe people don't have the chance to go back home, or maybe they're like, I don't want to do this anymore, or maybe, I don't know. Anyhow, I explained to Kian what we were going to do. And so the introduction was that this artist took everything she owned and bundled it up to drag it on the street. And he said, stop, I'm already getting stressed.
You triggered Kian.
Yeah, I don't even know
It's like, never mind. I don't
where
want
to
to know.
begin.
I do. I was thinking about it this morning because I was looking around and I was like, only a New Yorker could do this. I was like, what do my lamps? Like, I don't understand. And then I remembered, oh yeah, she's a New Yorker. She's got like, 20 things, period.
Right, yeah. It kind of like goes back to what we said earlier about women in the earlier 20th century living in rooms, renting rooms, and not being unable to accumulate that much because it's impossible to move freely if you own that much.
Right.
So it makes me think like in New York, maybe you don't accumulate as much just because physically it's not as possible.
Right. Just not as much space.
Say that again?
Just not as much space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
I know. Even when obviously in LA, we do have more space, but even when I visit like my family in Virginia and they have, houses that are like 5,000 square feet. And I'm just like, I don't know what I would do with all this,
Yeah.
and then you have this strange pressure to fill the space as well.
Yeah.
Even in rooms that you really don't go in. I remember growing up and we had like a formal dining room and a formal living room. And we never stepped foot in either of those places. So strange.
No. I think to me, after reading what she did in 2013, I'm sorry, and that's one of the bridges that connects the city. I'm sure I pronounced it wrong, but she did this crossing the bridge because the bridge was altered in order for bigger ships to dock in the city. So to think that this is not just about consumption and accumulation, but how things are being altered in order to provide more stuff. That was really shocking. Because of course it's invisible. I don't know how many trucks come in LA and leave. I don't know how many ships dock in Long Beach.
Right.
I mean, I know that it's a bunch of things, but we don't get an idea exactly of how much.
Yeah, I don't think our attention went there at all until the supply chain was interrupted or there wasn't people to unload those ships in Long Beach that we ever had any understanding. I don't think our minds went there really until, of course, they had to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty sobering, I think, also. I don't know. Talking about what you said, that influencers, I just brought it up. I on social media see influencers talking about the challenge of not making trash for a year or something. And they're all from New York. 'Cause- So to your point, they're not from here. And they show a little jar and then they said, this is my waste for the last 12 months. And I'm like,
No.
what?
Yeah, no, nothing makes sense. How?
Yeah.
I mean, how? They just like go to the bodega every day and get exactly what they need. And then still,
Yeah. It's just interesting. All right. I think I just wiped off this figure right here. Oh, what am I doing? Am I on? Never mind. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I wiped up this figure completely, but because I added a little bit more detail on the card and everything, I was able to make inroads in defining the figure a little bit more. Extending the arm, creating more convergence and divergence. So this was really helpful to spend a little bit of time. And again, the key of this painting is the figure. It's the key. So it's not about how many details you put on the figure. The painting will not become stronger if you clothe the figure with everything showing the stitch work of the back of the denim and then the string of the tied up apron on the back, and that's not going to work, and in the sense that it's not going to create this idea of capturing the weight and the difference in the tension versus the center of gravity. You could do this in one color and very abstractly and capture this idea of pull. And that's what's key here. It's not the detail. And you can tell also, it's not criticism, but you can tell how some painters approach painting from the perspective of detail, density, and quantity. And with the thought that the more detail you add, the stronger the painting will be. And I feel like, looking at or remembering children's books that I grew up with, there was a Catalan illustrator. She passed away, by the way, not a long time ago. And her books were very interesting because the illustrations were beautiful, and she was known for depicting scenes, urban scenes, in which there were tons of figures, and each figure was dedicated to a specific thing. The person who in the market who sells this, and then the children who play, and then the pets who are doing something. So it was all about number. And I love the illustrations because I used to wander from point to point, from narrative to narrative. And I feel like that's one way of approaching representation. But in this case, I would say try to bring a different approach, not by the number of detail. All right, ready for my first notes, and I am very happy. And I think I need, what do I need? I need stuff. I'm gonna use I have a big brush. I think I'll use a medium brush. Okay. So sketch is done. Took us a little bit, wow, almost an hour, but that's okay. This is fine. And then I'm just gonna work darker to lighter with the solvent, darker to lighter with a solvent. And I'm blocking out right now. And I'm glad the image doesn't look super detailed. Just because it makes the blocking, the imprimatura stage a little bit easier. If I had too many details right now, too many closed elements, this would have been a little bit more frustrating. Or slow, not frustrating, slow. So good, and I'm just gonna do the shadows on the, yeah. I was looking at the images also, and I feel like, what would I think? Sometimes I think this way. What would I think if I go to somebody's house and I see a painting on a wall depicting this? How would it make me feel? Because I think that sometimes we can choose things because we think one thing or another, but there's meaning in displaying this or painting this. And I don't know what I would think. I don't know what I would think. I need to think a little bit about it, but because when I see the images of the artist Mary Mattingly in New York City dragging that, they feel shocking. There's something of, and I speaking for myself and about myself, there's something almost hypocritical in my reaction, my first reaction. And I'm glad we're doing this, by the way, because it almost feels like, and this is not a criticism of her work, she seems super nice, but it almost feels like she's tackling these important issues from the perspective of first world's problems, you know, the consumption, which it's important because she's trying to bring awareness to the fact that it is a problem. What we're doing is a problem. The way we live is a problem. So by doing these sort of performances, she's trying to bring awareness to what we take for granted. But at the same time, by feeling, and I'm not saying her, but myself, by feeling shock of seeing her pull this in New York City, I see my own hypocrisy in why am I shocked of seeing this there? And I see beauty in seeing this in a different place. I don't have an answer to that question, but I love that it brings up this question. It's this idea that we have to get ready for a dystopian future because climate change, and then realizing that so many people are already living that way. We're eco-stressed about what's coming to us when people around the world are facing these challenges today. Again, just open-ended questions. I'm not trying to find an answer. All right, I'm just going to use gray and build the shadows around it. And then I was looking at the Van Gogh, the Van Gogh images or paintings. And he did so much work with workers and farmers, so much. He felt so connected to this idea of maybe struggle, truth. He probably felt something about depicting certain subjects reveals this idea that you wanna feature the truth. It's not like you are fascinated by something because you have a fetish. It's this idea that for some reason, for different reasons, we don't consider, artists don't consider their surroundings being truthful. So they depict other people's surroundings, pursuing this idea that, you know, that's more real. And I like this idea. The invisible, the unspoken of, the people that have no voices. Anyhow, so I was just checking her Instagram, and she seems so nice, this artist, in the sense that she's genuinely happy about any exposure that she gets. She doesn't use very very complex lingo to explain anything. And you know, you have to be careful. Again, there's so many concepts that I've never thought of before, but this idea of the white savior complex, in which, you know, people that are not living through things, they speak or they present things as they have the solution for everything. And more and more people get called out for it. The white savior complex. Because it's caused so much damage to communities. Sometimes. Anyhow, so I'm just doing a wash with the same color. I'm thinking right now that it's best not to bring any colors. I'm gonna anchor, just because it's so crowded, I'm gonna anchor my imprimatura with just black and solvent. I just want to bring values. I want to simplify the act of painting right now with just a very diluted liquid and one single color. Because I feel like that's gonna allow me to cover things in a faster way, but by covering meaning like processing things in a faster way and not having to get dragged down by color choices. And so, yeah, this is working. It reminds me a little bit, and you guys know because you're here. Yes, the Except Lois, we went to the exhibition at the National Gallery, Winslow Homer, and there were some watercolors that he did in the Caribbean that featured architectural elements, but also some figures. And I think that was my favorite part of the exhibition. And I loved how he depicted the figures in a very simple way, but they didn't feel heavy, fake, flat, or infantile, if I can use this super strong word. They were almost like borderline abstract without too much detail. But they were so powerful in that context. So I'm so excited to work on this, just because it kind of like reminds me of that a little bit. Okay, so I think this is my approach to the imprimatura. I'm gonna work a little bit more here. And everything gets revealed. I can see so much already that I want to change, like so much. So this is very exciting. And it also kind of like confirms that it will be the figures that will take the most focus. Not necessarily the most work, but the most focus. I think the figures are going to be extremely important. Yeah. All right, I'm going to take a super mini break to kind of like enjoy this stage. And I realized there's an arm here that I didn't capture. How about that? I did not see this arm. Okay, so I think this is okay. All right, I'm going to pause and try to articulate the next step and imagine, 'cause I feel like my idea of how this was going to play out is changing. And this happens every single time. And that's why it's so important to be hands-on as you explain to yourself what you're going to do. Because you may have an idea of how to enter the process, but only when you are treading the way, you realize that you need to use different approaches and techniques and strategies. I never thought that the figure would be so important. And I'm going to dedicate the next, the second half of the session. My focus would be on building the figures. And I'm going to leave this almost semi-abstract. I feel that conceptually, it would be interesting to tackle this from a specific visual point of view in which the figures get more detail and maybe the color accents, and perhaps the rest becomes almost secondary. I feel it could be interesting in the sense that it could bring attention to the figures as the focal point, and then the rest could become accessory or yeah, around that main focus. So that's going to be my strategy, actually. And I am ready to move forward. Jen, how are you? What's your take? What do you think? What any thoughts?
I was when you were talking about the Winslow Homer exhibit, just how moved everyone was by that work. And to be frank, all the work that we saw in Salisbury, every time that we went to, a museum or at one of the houses, what have you, and just took a look around everyone's work, you could see it immediately start to impress upon everyone's work that day. And it's funny how you said that, Lois wasn't able to see the Winslow Homer, but I really felt like the work that she particularly, I don't know if she's actually on this call yet, but I think she is. Yeah, hi, Lois, I'm giving you a shout out. The work that she saw, at the house. Oh no, I can't. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Leo. That it so moved her
Yeah.
so fast that one of her pieces, was really like inspired
Yeah.
by the work she saw just like an hour beforehand.
Yeah.
And I love that. I
Yeah.
think that's such an important, I mean, we talk about it all the time of like, of not only creating art, but also making room in your life to go see it and be inspired by it.
Yeah.
And that is just as important as the creating of it.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, my mind kind of drifted to that when you
No,
were
no,
talking
it's
about,
great.
yeah, Winslow Homer. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I know that Arundel's posted the John Singer Sargent painting of the pumpkin patch on their Instagram.
Yeah. Ah, perfect.
And, I just thought, my first thought was like, okay, this looks amazing. And I thought, this is better than I thought, or this is better than what I saw. Because we were there in the room and we were all kind of like, I felt like a little boy in a candy store. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, John Singer Sargent. But I think out of the excitement and the adrenaline and the, being with Margaret and stuff, I didn't really spend time looking at that painting. When I saw it on their Instagram, I felt that I needed to go back and
Right.
truly see it.
Good. Let's do it.
Because it's really cute.
It's
There's so much
so
detail.
great. Yeah. I need to look then.
Yeah, if you can find it on their Instagram, I don't know if you can download it or snapshot it
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll do
and
it.
then upload it. Yeah, because there's a boy there. There's a child in the background holding a pumpkin. And I totally missed out that somehow. Um, yeah. So thank you so much for sharing that, Jen. And I'm just gonna start doing my first color notes, switching to the oil, working on two things, edge quality, color direction, edge quality, color direction. I'm going back to what I did. I'm applying more work to what I did. I'm building on what I did. I'm not disregarding that stage. I'm just adding, I'm adding to it. And I have a proposition for all of us. Just because I did this figure first, and then I did this second figure, and I felt this second figure is stronger because I came from the experience of doing the first figure, I'm going to tackle this differently. I'm going to work on each aspect of each figure at a time. So if I do the hair on this figure, I'm not going to continue working on this. I'm going to do the hair on that figure. If I work on the blouse or the top or the torso on this figure, I'm going to do the same on the other figure. I'm going to break down the approach. And this is just because I have two. Obviously, if you have a single figure, you don't have to do this. But I feel like this is giving me the opportunity to change direction a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do. And it's 9 by 12 and it's already so small. These figures are so small. And sometimes the struggle that we have painting something small, it's not because it's more difficult. It's because mentally we're not making the switch to painting something at a smaller scale that requires a different approach. We struggle because we are focused on painting that small area as if it was big in a different painting. So anytime you feel like this sense of struggle or frustration, stop and pause and don't question yourself. Question the approach to painting it, because that's what needs to change. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and then do the hair. And I'm gonna use black. and pixelate it. Pixelate it. Just pixelate and the sideburn. And then I'm going to do the hair right here. It's much smaller than what I did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring some gray tone and I'm going to shade from the outside. So this is my edge work. That John Singer Sargent, if it wasn't 9x12, it was 8x10. That's how small it was. Oh, you found it. I gotta see it.
Yeah, I posted it.
I gotta see it and share it. Oh, all of them. Good. Oh, come on. Oops. Someone's calling me. I don't even know. Okay, painting. Tiny. Great photograph. Pumpkin. I mean, come on. Thanks, Jen. This is so good.
Of course.
Look at this flower.
I know, it's so pretty.
This is so Ruthless Painters.
Yeah.
I am done.
I mean,
This
so
is
great.
magical.
And it
So
just goes
beautiful.
to show you how like few strokes this is, and
Yeah.
how like the legs aren't really developed, and the
Yeah.
hand is, you know.
So good. So good.
Mhm.
And then from a distance.
It's perfect.
Yeah. Gosh. Wow. No facial features. I love that.
Nothing.
But
Yeah.
a little bit of bone structure.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. And then from a distance.
It's amazing how graphic the vines look, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, mark making, just marks. Boom, boom, boom. Nothing's fixed.
Mm-mm.
Barely any paint.
Mm-hmm.
Barely. Oh my gosh. Okay. So depressing.
No, I know. It's like watching Kate Winslet do anything.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. That's so funny. Okay, so I'm just going back to working the edges with the paint from the outside. Okay, I'm gonna do the face. So I'm gonna take inspiration from that image and bring some ecru with a little bit of burnt sienna. And I'm gonna pay attention. I'm gonna pay attention and see if I can, tiny brush by tiny brush, if I can just pin. I just want to pin something. I'm not doing details at all. I just want to pin the idea of a little face. And I'm going to try to be thrifty in my application of brushstrokes. Scarcity is good in certain ways. It's not good. It's not good. I don't know how to say it, but you know, yeah. In painting, it is. Okay, face and face. Maybe now that I'm sort of like doing this, I'm gonna try to do the skin tone of the hand in the same manner. Same manner. So pinning. I'm not painting. I am painting, but I'm just pinning the brush strokes. I'm not expanding too much. Okay, good. And then what? So I'm gonna do the pants on both of them because I feel like that's important before anything else. So let me see. Darker. The knee comes forward much more than I thought. The cuffing of the pants at the end. And her back. A little lighter. The calf on her front leg, it's a little more pronounced. A little wrinkle here. And okay, I am going to build. Okay. So pants on one figure and pants on the other figure. It's a little lighter here. So just gonna lower this area. I need some blue. I have some cerulean from before. I'm gonna bring it. Some lighter. Ooh, I didn't catch the knee on this. And this is like, it's so different. First color notes, amazing. Don't stay within the lines. The lines are there to be built. They're there to be manipulated, processed. They're malleable and they're flexible and they need to be processed. Okay, so another. Flicker your eyes back and forth. Go slowly. Try not to drag the brush too much for too long. Okay, and then I'm just gonna bring this angle right here. Look at your edges. Compare, compare, compare. I'm gonna bring some lighter gray from outside and start trimming the edge from outside. It needs to be moved. It needs to be moved on this figure right here. This needs to be lower. The angle here, it's too pronounced on mine. I need to bring down that and bring the legs, the feet. I'm just trimming that edge from the outside. So what am I doing? I'm doing first color notes. I'm bringing a tone that feels slightly on the direction of the color of the figure that I observe. I build some darks first. And I realized that things needed to change. And now I'm bringing some lighter tone from the outside to trim and adding some elements, I feel like that's too triangular. I need to soften that roundness. I need to bring or thicken the back thigh. Okay. I'm gonna bring some highlights on the boots. And with burnt sienna. Oh, nope, not gonna do that. I said one item at a time. So hair, hair, skin tone, pants, pants. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to the pants on this area. This is how I would build the eyes, by the way, on a portrait. Don't move forward. Okay, here we go. Entirely. I'm going to bring some color of the background and then build the outside edge. Okay, very important. I think that's very good. Very good. So color direction, a little bit of detail, use the background or the outside of a shape. Here we go. Yeah, to build it. Okay. Excited. Right, I'm gonna do the top. So, and I'm gonna bring some color. I feel like here I could. So I'm just gonna move things a little bit. And cadmium red, the substitute of the cadmium red. All right, I'm gonna do color on her side, on the right side first. I'm using oil, not solvent. Pinning, little tiny pixels. I'm not delineating too much. I'm not delineating too much. Okay, I just need it a little bit. And I'm gonna bring the raw umber and darken, maybe the black, darken the shadow. Just pixelating it a tad. I'm not delineating the line along the charcoal that I have. Yeah, I think that's good. Maybe I need to build the back. It's a little rounder, so I'm gonna bring a little bit more of this color. Okay, I think that's okay. I'm gonna do the color, and I think that is a quinacridone rose. Quinacridone, yeah. Quinacridone violet. I forgot the name. Quinacridone violet. Yep, I'll mix that with the pink and then I'll get the color of the blouse. So I'm doing one by one element at a time. Maybe some pink here. Oh, yeah. Perfect. So I'm gonna do the darker quinacridone, almost black, darker to lighter, always. Kind of like pinning your first strokes. Don't drag or sweep or drag. Don't drag the brush, just pin your first brush strokes and constantly flicker your eyes. I'm gonna do the darker on the other side. Set your darker values as anchors. First, always. It's much easier if you do it that way, or it's gonna give you less difficulty. Doesn't matter how big or small the brush is. It's not about the size of the detail. It's about pinning those kind of like strokes in a place that feels really strong. Okay, so just moving to lighter notes. And again, I'm just dropping, pinning, placing, locating a few brush strokes first. Nice. Let's see if I can show you this. Let's see if I can show you this. Okay, I need to remove this for 1 second. Oh yeah. Got it. Okay. So I am just applying very pixelated strokes, darker first, lighter afterwards. Same thing with this. So if you notice with the red, first on the back, and then on the darker area. And those are the pans, some lighter and darker. Same thing with the pans right here. I changed so many things, stretched, thickened, fleshed out some areas, but I feel like slowly the goal, which is to create this tension between her center of gravity and the fact that she's pulling this heavy load, I think it's becoming much more evident. This is not about adding stitch work on the back pocket of her denim or making the sole, the rubber sole, a specific color, and catching every single, I forgot what the name of those lines are on the wheel of the bicycle. That is not going to make the painting better. And I use better just because we're among friends, because that word should be banned in our vocabulary. Much more developed, elevated, worked on. Those are good words, not better. So I am pixelating, pinning those strokes first, flickering my eyes back and forth. This drops a little bit, it's a little bit longer. I work slowly. I think that's good. And then I'm just gonna do the darker area on the blouse and on the sleeve. Color is not the same. There's a magenta, dominant magenta note on that quinacridone on her blouse. But I'm not concerned about color matching. I just want, okay, here we go. Okay, very good. I'm gonna bring some darkness on the collar. I think that's really important. Good. And some lightness on the sleeve. I'm gonna add some highs and lows. Time-wise, okay, good. Okay, very good. Also on the blouse, this is much lighter. So I'm gonna bring the lighter value here, especially under the apron. Okay. Yeah. I think that's okay. Maybe I'll bring some lighter notes on the fold, on this area. Oh my gosh. All right, apron. All right, apron next. I'm gonna do it even though it's like super white. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna bring the apron on each side. And essentially what I'm gonna do is just work on these two figures for the next half an hour. This is how much time we have left, but I intend to work on this a little bit longer, obviously, or not longer, with a few more sessions. So I'm going to deal with the shape of the apron. And I'm going to bring some light blue, some of the periwinkle, to give the shadows of the white, to reflect the shadows of the white. Maybe some of that blue to create a darker shadow underneath the elbow. Good. I just need a little indication. Doesn't have to be super. Okay. Nice. I think that does it. I'm gonna bring the blouse, the red, underneath the apron string. Okay, I think that's good. So I'm gonna shave the edge from the outside because it protrudes excessively. So I'm repeating what I'm doing. First color notes, two important things: edge quality and color direction. Edge quality and color direction. Okay, I'm going to jump to the apron on the other figure. I'm going to do the actual string first. My brush is quite big for these lines, but it's okay. I'm not going to switch the brush now. And then I'll just bring the apron down. It cuts. Here we go. It cuts a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna bring some gray to kind of like define the background. And bring some dark to define the apron from the sides. All right, I think that's good. I leave the edges a little bit raw, torn, and imperfect. I think that's something really good about it. Okay, good. All right, shoes. I'm gonna go for the shoes. Phew. Okay, so socks. There's some purple on those socks. That purple is, what's the name of that color? I always forget. The purple is, here, I got it. Dioxazine purple. Dioxazine purple. Such a gorgeous cold purple. Quinacridones are warm. Dioxazine is cold purple. Cold purple. I have to be careful because this is a chemical color, which means that pigmentation is so high. Sock done. I'm gonna bring white to pin. Just pin those first brush strokes. Go back and forth from the image to the painting. Okay, here we go. It's a little darker. Okay, good. Then some white. You can do this with a medium brush, doesn't have to be small. In fact, if you use a brush that it's too small and you're focused too much on detail, it's just gonna, I'm gonna do the shadow underneath. The shadow underneath. The floor seems wet in this area. Okay. Okay, I think shoes are done here, but I'm gonna work on the outside to trim the edges. So again, first color notes, color direction, and edge work. Oh, I missed a part of the pan. That's amazing. It's incredible what we miss out. I need to bring a part of the pant. Here we go. I'm gonna bring a little bit of edge work. Okay. And the shape of the shoe. If you have only one figure, double down on detail, not detail, on work on that figure. Try to go one step at a time, but spending more time. And I have to split up my time. And that's probably the reason why I'm not doing any work also on the actual vehicle, because I have to split up the time into two figures. They're going to have less definition, but at the same time, it's going to allow me to complete this stage. Okay, I think that's good. Sorry. I brought some white here. I shouldn't have. I should not have, but that's okay. Okay. Nice. Wow. Oh, I didn't do the, okay, I'm gonna stop because I didn't do the blouse right up here. She's wearing a vest. Let's do the vest. The shirt underneath. I need to do the vest. There's a color. And that's the neck. It's really, really cool. Okay, good. That needed to happen big time. This is a little bigger. This forearm comes down a little more. Okay, good. And I'm gonna bring some burnt sienna. No, raw umber. Wow, nice. Okay. And I'm gonna bring some gray to trim the edge. Gosh, I didn't do her arm from the other side. So much I miss. I'm so happy that I'm just splitting my time. So the blouse or the shirt here, it's lighter. The armpit is a little bit darker. Okay, little touch. And then the forearm, it's much lighter. So I'm just gonna bring. Okay. And underneath, I'm gonna do a shadow. Yeah, I think that's enough for now. It just kind of like shows there's some darkness underneath and I need to bring up actually underneath the arm. Yeah, a little higher. And I am just gonna use the gray, the light gray. Okay, yeah, I think that's good. To kind of like a trim from the other side. Yeah, so I'm just gonna expand the background around this figure, just so it feels somehow more integrated. I think that's good. Okay, great. So I think that's very good. Okay, and then I'm gonna go to the shoes of the other person. Oof, the shoes, they have burnt sienna. Okay. So I'm adding the burnt sienna. There's a little bluish, a little bluish reflection. There's also orange-like sole of the shoe. So I'm gonna try to add that. And a heel right up there. And then what's interesting is that one foot is raised. Okay, so I need to darken one. I'm gonna darken first the shadow on this foot. Okay, I think that's good. Just darken that shadow. And then I'm gonna lighten, see if that's gonna make any effect. Lighten that shadow right here. Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think so. It kind of like looks like she's gonna step forward. I think this is a very important part of the painting. Now that I'm seeing this. Okay, I'm gonna bring some gray. On this area, so to blend this. And I'm gonna bring also, again, the darks. Maybe I should change the brush, but I'm enjoying painting with a brush that gives me strokes that are much thicker than I would need. There's something about that that I feel it's good. Yeah, I think so. Both are stepping forward. I think that's a little bit clear. Okay, I'm gonna go for the flesh tone on a second color node. So I feel like this is a good first color nodes. But now for the second color nodes, I cannot do bone structure in this face because the details are ridiculously small. But what I'll do is I'll just bring a little bit of a highlight, almost as the John Singer Sargent image of the boy that had no facial features. And I think that should be enough. I'm going to do the same with the forearms. There's a clear on the palm. She's wearing gloves, plastic gloves. This is fine on this one. And especially on the arm right up here. I'm going to bring some darker value. Okay, here we go. Okay. Some white on the sleeves. Okay. Oh, right. And then I'm going to bring some darker notes on the face, actually. I could bring some darker notes. So what I'm doing is second color notes. Second color notes are more about diversifying, expanding, widening the range of values within one specific point. So that's what I'm doing with that same brush. It's a little darker. The cheekbone is a little darker. The neck is a little darker. So I'm trying to build that. I'm going to bring, if I can, a little bit of the sideburn on both of them because it comes down a bit. And her bangs are also slightly placed on the front. Some highlight on, it's working so great. So great. Some highlight on top of the hair. The hair is shiny and it's pulled back, so it creates this sheen. Not on hers. On hers is more blended. So I'm going to blend just with a little turpentine or solvent. It's not turpentine. I'm going to blend. I'll build the hair, the ponytail. Okay. The hair's a little looser underneath. Very good. So I'm just going to work on the background around the head because I think that's going to define that edge a little bit. With some gray. Much lighter. Okay, I think that's good. Kind of like defines the figure. It's coming along. I'm gonna bring my old hairy, one of my old hairy guys, and see if I could, oops, slightly blur some of the edges because I want to soften some of the aspects because I feel like, you know, yeah, so good, especially on the hair. Yeah, softening. I think that's very good. Next to the forearm, especially here, because I feel like, all right, nice. It helps me close the gaps. Okay, good. Excellent. Yeah, the shape of the, I mean, the um, blending kind of like helps me integrate it, making it less painting by numbers, less fractioned, less deconstructed geometrically. It doesn't feel like I'm coloring. So that's why I blended some of the edges, because otherwise it feels too descriptive. I'm gonna play around with the background and see if I can expand it on different directions. I think that's good. Just expanding. I'm gonna bring this to the edge slowly. So this is sort of like, it clarifies the space. It opens up the space. So the focal points become a little bit clearer. Yeah, I'm glad I'm doing it. Good. This is to be a little lighter, by the way. And also this and this area. Nice. Yeah. I'm so happy. So this is kind of like working. I'm gonna see if I can show you a close-up to see how little detail there is. So notice the bone structure without any elements, a little bit of blurring, and then I'm cleaning out the space from the background. So the strings on the apron, I think that's enough for now. And then on her figure, I'm not as happy with the face. I think the face looks a little bit too small. Maybe I'll do a few brush strokes, but I'm happy with the overall take on the correlation between torso, legs, and the shoes. So I think this, and also the darker area. I'm not sure. I need to work on the foot. I think I could still make it so it's gonna step forward. But oh yeah, sorry for this movement of the lens. But so let me just we have time. We have 15 minutes. So maybe 15 minutes. I could just do something with. I think I'm gonna start working on the actual bicycle. I'm gonna break it down. Let's do the bicycle first. Yeah. I'm gonna define the bicycle a little bit more. rather than doing the trash. Not trash, sorry, the boxes. Looks like produce, like they're going to the market. Or maybe not. I see some clothes in there. Okay. There's something darker underneath the cards. I think I'm gonna go for that shadow. And I have a cerulean, so maybe I'll just go for a bluish. Yeah. That's maybe, maybe it's too dark, but it's okay. Oh, I think this is too strong. Too strong. Oh boy. It's very strong. That's okay. I'll start diluting with gray a little bit. I like the blue, so I think I'm gonna keep that. But yeah, it's a good idea to establish the values before applying more detail. I think that's good. I'm gonna start blending with the brush. I think that's good. Yeah, blending with the brush. I think this is a little better. Okay, and then with the smaller brush, I'm gonna bring some shadows because this is way too dark. Trying to diversify the space. And bringing some lighter notes. Okay. I'm actually happy bringing the blue note, something we associate more to sky. And the paintbrush to kind of like blend, start blending. So I think that's good. And then I'm gonna bring back the wheel. So I think that's gonna help. So I'm happy organizing which areas I'm going to paint. Usually I mentioned, it's important to be scattered and not spend too much time. So I followed a different approach on this painting. I was organized. Yeah, that's not terrible. I think that's okay. I'll be able to bring down the blue note, but there's something cool about that bluish note underneath. think I like that. Maybe I'm just gonna work on a darker element right up here. I'm gonna bring a medium brush, gray and black, to peel off, pull back. Yeah, I think that's gonna be good. Just to bring or separate the objects, the card from the background. I don't want to do like a street, but I'll bring an angle. Make it a little bit more intuitive. Yeah, I think that's good. That's the road. Okay, so yeah, I think this definitely peels it or gives a little bit more dimension. I just, by applying these few brush strokes, it just creates space behind. The space is not defined, it's not recognizable, it's not specific, but it brings a great support to the actual mass of objects. So many things we can do before we actually tackle the objects. Okay. Yeah. Ooh, I like it. I think that's okay. I think that's okay. I'm going to bring some shadows underneath the other bike. I think it's more important to anchor things. Clearly, I'm only going to have time today to sort of like build a few things. I usually build everything at once, but I just feel like for this specific approach, yeah, I think that's good. Here we go. Super rough, not very specific, just super rough. Oh yeah, I think that works. I think that works. Great, great, great challenge. Ooh, nice. Maybe this could be a little darker underneath. The point of contact could be darker. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. Looks a little flat tire. Let's just bring some more triangular element to squeeze it in. Okay. Yeah, I like the bluish note underneath. Ooh, this is starting to look okay. It's starting to look okay. So that's exciting. Maybe following the same sort of like pattern of shadows, I should build these shadows with some bluish note. Yeah, that's good. And then bringing some periwinkle. Bring in the periwinkle. Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually advancing more than I thought. Okay. So I'm gonna start winding down because I want to stop in about 4 minutes and take a 10-minute break. A lot to do, but I'm really happy about the progress and the decisions, leaving things more ghostly and underdeveloped. Absolutely. Absolutely. I like this color direction of the bluish notes underneath. It's nice to break associations because usually we associate either gray or gray-like neutrals with ground, and anything cold we associated with sky. But yeah, this is very good. Extremely happy. I'm gonna okay, so in about a couple of minutes, I'm gonna take a break and I'm gonna stop the recording. So we have the webinar complete, and we're gonna upload it and then send it to you guys. We're gonna take a 10-minute break in which I'm gonna stretch because my back feels a little tight from all the effort and the focus. I'm gonna hydrate myself and use the restroom and maybe eat something quickly, and then I'll take a photo, upload, and at 1:15 Pacific time, we will sort of like share and exchange and see what you guys think, and any notes, any comments, any highlights, and see the progress if you want to share, which, and Jen had to leave early, so she won't be able to join us. She had to go somewhere. She left a few minutes ago, so that's why it's so quiet. So she won't be there. So yeah, looking forward in about 10 minutes. I'm going to stop the recording right now. If I can find, yes. And thanks for doing this live if you have, and also for watching it if you're watching it later. And I'll see you in a bit.